Shri Swami Shri Yukteswar Giri. The Holy Science. Introduction. This Cavalier Darsanam, exposition of final truth, has been written by Priyanath Swami, son of Kshetranath and Kandambini of the Karar family, at the request in Allahabad of the great preceptor Mahavatar Babaji, near the end of the 194th year of the present Dwapar Yuga. This exposition has been published for the benefit of the world. The purpose of this book is to show as clearly as possible that there is an essential unity in all religions, that there is no difference in the truths inculcated by the various faiths, that there is but one method by which the world, both external and eternal, has evolved, and there is but one goal admitted by all scriptures. But this basic truth is not easily comprehended. The discord existing between the different religions and the ignorance of men make it almost impossible to lift the veil and have a look at this grand verity. The creeds foster a spirit of hostility and dissension. Ignorance widens the gulf that separates one creed from another. Only a few specially gifted persons can rise superior to the influence of their professed creeds and find absolute unanimity in the truths propagated by all great faiths. The object of this book is to point out the harmony underlying the various religions and to help in binding them together. This task is indeed a Herculean one, but at Allahabad I was entrusted with the mission by a holy command. Allahabad, the sacred Prayag Tirath, the place of confluence of the Ganges, Yamuna and Saraswati rivers, is a site for the congregation of worldly men and of spiritual devotees at the time of Kumbh Mela. Worldly men cannot transcend the mundane limit in which they have confined themselves, nor can spiritual devotees, having once renounced the world, deign to come down and mix themselves in its turmoil. Yet men who are wholly engrossed in earthly concerns stand in definite need of help and guidance from those holy beings who bring light to the race. So a place there must be where union between the two sets is possible. Tirtha affords such a meeting place. Situated as it is on the beach of the world, storms and buffets touch it not. The sadhus, ascetics, with the message for the benefit of the humanity, find a Kumbh Mela to be an ideal place to impart instructions to those who can heed it. In 1894, when this book was written, Babaji gave the author the title of Swami. He was later formally initiated into the Swami order by the Mahant, monastery head of Bodh Gaya, Bihar, and took the monastic name of Sri Yukteswar. He belonged to the Giri mountain branch of the Swami order. This is publisher's note. Continuing with the chapter. A message of such a nature was I chosen to propagate when I paid a visit to the Kumbh Mela, being held at Allahabad in January 1894. I was walking along the bank of Ganges. I was summoned by a man and was afterwards honored by an interview with a great holy person, Babaji, the Gurudeva of my own Guru, Lahiri Mahasya of Banaras. The holy personage at the Kumbh Mela was thus my own Param Guruji Maharaj, though this was our first meeting. During my conversation with Babaji, we spoke of the particular class of men who now frequent these places of pilgrimage. I humbly suggested that there were men greater by far in intelligence than most of these then present, men living in distant parts of the world, Europe and America, professing different creeds and ignorant of the real significance of the Kumbh Mela. They were men fit to hold communion with the spiritual devotees, so far as intelligence is concerned. Yet such intellectual men in foreign lands were, alas, wedded in many cases to rank materialism. Some of them, though famous for their investigation in the realms of science and philosophy, do not recognize the essential unity in religion. The professed creeds serve as merely insurmountable barriers that threaten to separate mankind forever. Note: Param Guru, literally Guru beyond, hence the Guru of one's Guru. Maharaj, Great King, is a title often added to that names of exceptional spiritual personages. Publisher's note. Continuing with the chapter, my Param Guruji Maharaj Babaji smiled and said, honoring me with the title of Swami, imposed on me the task of this book. I was chosen, I do not know the reason why, to remove the barriers and to help in establishing the basic truth in all religions. The book is divided into 4 sections, according to the 4 stages in the development of knowledge. The highest aim of religion is Atma Jananam, self-knowledge. But to attain this, knowledge of the external world is necessary. Therefore, the first section of the book deals with Ved, the Gospel, and seeks to establish fundamental truths of creation and to describe the evolution and involution of the world. All creatures, from the highest to the lowest in the link of creation, are found eager to realize 3 things: existence, consciousness, and bliss. These purposes or goals are the subject for discussion in the second section of the book. The third section deals with the method of realizing 3 purposes of life. The fourth section discusses the revelations which come to show who have travelled far to realize the 3 ideals of life and who are very near their destination. The method I adopted in this book is first to enunciate a proposition in Sanskrit terms of the Oriental sages, and then to explain it by reference to the holy scriptures of the West. In this way, I have tried my best to show that there is no real discrepancy, much less any real conflict between the teachings of the East and the West. Written as this book is, under the inspiration of my Param Gurudeva, and in a Dwapar age of rapid development in all departments of knowledge, I hope that significance of the book will not be missed by those for whom it is meant. A short discussion with mathematical calculation of the yugas or ages will explain the fact that the present age for the world is Dwapar Yuga, and the 194 years of the Yuga have now AD 1894 passed away, bringing a rapid development in man's knowledge. We learn from Oriental astronomy that moons revolve around their planets, and planets turning on their axis revolve with their moons round the sun. and the sun, with its planet and their moons, takes some star for its dual and revolves round it in about 24,000 years of our earth, a celestial phenomena which causes the backward movement of the noctilual points around the zodiac. The sun also has another motion by which it revolves around a grand center called Vishnu Nabhi, which is the seat of creative power. Brahma, the universal magnetism. Brahma regulates dharma, the mental virtue of the internal world. When the sun in its revolution round its dual comes to the place nearest to its grand center, the seat of Brahma, an event which takes place when the autonomal unix comes to the first point of Aries, dharma, the mental virtue, becomes so much developed that man can easily comprehend all, even the mysteries of the spirit. The autonomal unix will be falling at the beginning of the 20th century among the fixed stars of the Virgo constellation and in the early part of the ascending Dwapar Yuga. After 12,000 years, when the sun goes to the place in its orbits which is farthest from Brahma, the grand center, an event which takes place when the autonomal unix is on its first point of Libra, dharma, the mental virtue, comes to such a reduced state that man cannot grasp anything beyond the gross material creation. Again, in the same manner, when the sun in its course of revolution begins to advance towards the place nearest to the grand center, dharma, the mental virtue, begins to develop. This growth is gradually completed in another 12,000 years. Each of these periods of 12,000 years brings a complete change both externally in the material world and eternally in the intellectual or electric world, and is called one of the Devi Yugas or electric couple. Thus, in a period of 24,000 years, the sun completes the revolution around its dual and finishes one electric cycle consisting of 12,000 years in an ascending arc and 12,000 years in a descending arc. Development of dharma, the mental virtue, is but gradual and is divided into 4 different stages in a period of 12,000 years. The time of 12,000 years during which the sun passes through a 1/20th portion of its orbit, see diagram, is called Kali Yuga. Dharma, the mental virtue, is then in its first stage and is only a quarter developed. The human intellect cannot comprehend anything beyond the gross material of this ever-changing creation, the external world. The period of 2400 years during which the sun passes through the 2/20th portion of its orbit is called Dwapar Yuga. Dharma, the mental virtue, is then in the second stage of development and is but half complete. The human intellect can then comprehend the fine matters of electricities and their attributes, which are the creating principles of the external world. The period of 3600 years during which the sun passes through the 3/20th part of its orbit is called Treta Yuga. Dharma, the mental virtue, is then in the third stage. The human intellect becomes able to comprehend the divine magnetism, the source of all electrical forces on which the creation depends for its existence. The period of 4800 years during which the sun passes through the remaining 4/20th portion of its orbit is called Satya Yuga. Dharma, the mental virtue, is then in its fourth stage and completes its full development. The human intellect can comprehend all, even God, the spirit, beyond this visible world. Manu, a great rishi, illumined sage of Satya Yuga, describes these yugas more clearly in the following passage from his Samhita. 4,000 of years, they say, is the Krita Yuga, Satya Yuga, or the golden age of the world. Its morning twilight has just as many hundreds, and its period of evening dusk is of the same length. That is, 400 plus 4,000 plus 400 is equal to 4,800. In the other three ages, with their morning and evening twilights, the thousands and the hundreds decrease by one. That is, 300 plus 3,000 plus 300 is equal to 3,600, etc. That fourfold cycle, comprising 12,000 years, is called an age of the gods. The sum of 1,000 divine ages constitutes one day of Brahma, and of the same length is its night. The period of Satya Yuga is 4,000 years in duration. 400 years before and after Satyuga proper are its sandhis, or periods of mutuation with the preceding and the succeeding yugas respectively. Hence, 4,800 years in all is the proper age of Satya Yuga. In the calculation of the period of other yugas and yuga sandhis, it is laid down that the numeral 1 should be deducted from the numbers of both thousands and hundreds, which indicate the periods of the previous yugas and sandhis. From this rule, it appears that 3,000 years is the length of Treta Yuga, and 300 years before and after are its sandhis, the periods of mutuation, which make a total of 3,600 years. So, 2,000 years is the age of Dwapar Yuga, with 200 years before and after as its sandhis, a total of 2,400 years. Lastly, 1,000 years is the length of Kali Yuga, with 100 years before and after as its sandhis, a total of 1,200 years. Thus, 12,000 years, the sum total of all periods of these four yugas, is the length of one of the Dev yugas or eclectic couple, two of which, that is, 24,000 years, make the electric cycle complete. From 11,501 BC, when the autumnal Unix was on the first point of Aries, the sun began to move away from the point of its orbit nearest to the grand center toward the point farthest from it, and accordingly the intellectual power of the man began to diminish. During the 4,800 years which the sun took to pass through one of the Satya couples, or 4/20th part of its orbit, the intellect of man lost altogether the power of grasping spiritual knowledge. During the 3,600 years following, which the sun took to pass through the descending Treta Yuga, the intellect gradually lost all power of grasping the knowledge of divine magnetism. During the 2,400 years next following, while the sun passed through the descending Dwapar Yuga, the human intellect lost its power of grasping the knowledge of electricities and their attributes. In 1,200 more years, the sun passed through the descending Kali Yuga and reached the point in its orbit which is farthest from the grand center. The autumnal Unix was on the first point of Libra. The intellectual power of man was so much diminished that it could no longer comprehend anything beyond the gross material of creation. The period around AD 500 was thus the darkest part of Kali Yuga, and of the whole cycle of 24,000 years. History indeed bears out the accuracy of these ancient calculations of the Indian rishis and records the widespread ignorance and suffering in all nations of that period. From AD 499 onward, the sun begins to advance towards the grand center and the intellect of man started gradually to develop. During the 1100 years of the ascending Kali Yuga, which brings us to AD 1599, the human intellect was so dense that it could not comprehend the electricities, Sukshma Bhuta, the fine matters of creation. In the political world also, generally speaking, there was no peace in any kingdom. Subsequent to this period, when the 100-year transitional Sandhi of Kali Yuga set in to effect a union with the following Dwapar Yuga, men began to notice the existence of fine matters, Panch Tanmatra, or the attributes of electricities, and political peace began to establish. About AD 1600, William Gilbert discovered magnetic forces and observed the presence of electricity in all material substances. In 1609, Kepler discovered important laws of astronomy and Galileo produced a telescope. In 1621, Drebbel of Holland invented the microscope. About 1670, Newton discovered the law of gravitation. In 1700, Thomas Savery made use of a steam engine in raising water. 20 years later, Stephen Gray discovered the action of electricity on the human body. In the political world, people began to have respect for themselves and civilization advanced in many ways. England united with Scotland and became a powerful kingdom. Napoleon Bonaparte introduced his new legal code into southern Europe. America won its independence, and many parts of Europe were peaceful. With the advance of science, the world began to be covered with railways and telegraphic wires. By the help of steam engines, electric machines, and many other instruments, fine matters were brought into practical use, although their nature was not clearly understood. In 1899, on completion of the period of 200 years of Dwapar Sandhi, the time of mutation, the true Dwapar Yuga of 2000 years will commence and will begin to mankind in general a thorough understanding of the electricities and their attributes. Such is the great influence of time which governs the universe. No man can overcome this influence except him who, blessed with pure love, the heavenly gift of nature, becomes divine. Being baptized in the sacred stream Pranav, the holy Om vibration, he comprehends the kingdom of God. The position of the world in the Dwapar Sandhi era at present, AD 1894, is not correctly shown in the Hindu almanacs. The astronomers and astrologers who calculate the almanacs have been guided by wrong annotations of certain Sanskrit scholars such as Kuluka Bhatta of the Dark Age of Kali Yuga, and now maintain that the length of Kali Yuga is 432,000 years, of which 4994 have in AD 1894 passed away, leaving 427,006 years still remaining. A dark prospect, and fortunately one not true. The mistake crept into almanacs for the first time during the reign of Raja Parikshit, just after the completion of the last descending Dwapar Yuga. At the time, Maharaja Yudhishthira, noticing the appearance of dark Kali Yuga, made over his throne to his grandson, the said Raja Parikshit. Maharaja Yudhishthira, together with all the wise men of his court, retired to the Himalayan mountains, the paradise of the world. Thus, there was none in the court of Raja Parikshit who could understand the principle of correctly calculating the ages of several yugas. Hence, after the completion of 24,000 years of then current Dwapar Yuga, no one dared to make the introduction of dark Kali Yuga more manifest by beginning to calculate from its year and to put an end to the number of Dwapar years. According to this wrong method of calculation, therefore, the first year of Kali Yuga was numbered 2401 along with the age of Dwapar Yuga. In 8499, when 1200 years, the length of the true Kali Yuga was complete and the sun had reached the point of its orbit farthest from the grand center, where the autumnal onyx was on the first point of Libra in the heavens. The age of Kali in the darkest period was then numbered by 3600 years instead of by 1200. With the commencement of ascending Kali Yuga after AD 499, the sun began to advance in its orbit nearer to the grand center, and accordingly the intellectual power of man started to develop. Therefore, the mistake in the almanacs began to be noticed by the wise men of the time, who found that the calculations of the ancient rishis had fixed the period of one Kali Yuga at 1200 years only. But as the intellect of these wise men was not yet suitably developed, they could not make only the mistake itself and not the reason for it. By way of reconciliation, they furnished that 1200 years, the real age of Kali, were not the ordinary years of our earth, but were so many Deva years, years of the gods, consisting of 12 Dev months of 30 days each, of 30 Deva days each, with each Deva day being equal to one ordinary solar year of our earth. Hence, according to these men, 1200 years of Kali Yuga must be equal to 432,000 years of our earth. In coming to a right conclusion, however, we should take into consideration the position of vernal units at spring in the year 1894. The astronomical reference books show the vernal units now to be 20 degree 54 minutes 36 seconds distant from the first point of Aries, the fixed star Revati, and by calculation it will appear that 1394 years have passed since the time when the vernal units began to recede from the first point of Aries. Deducting 1200 years, the length of the last ascending Kali Yuga, from 1394 years, we get 194 to indicate the present year of the world's entrance into ascending Dwapar Yuga. The mistake of older almanacs will thus be clearly explained when we add 3600 years to this period of 1394 years and get 4994 years, which according to the prevailing mistaken theory represents the present year AD 1894 in the Hindu almanacs. Referring to the diagram given in this book, the reader will see the autumnal onyx is now AD 1894 falling among the stars of the Virgo constellation and in the ascending Dwapar Yuga. In this book, certain truths such as those about the properties of magnetism, its auras, different sorts of electricities, etc. have been mentioned, although modern science has not yet fully discovered them. The 5 sorts of electricity can be easily understood if one will direct his attention to the nerve properties, which are purely electrical in nature. Each of the 5 sensory nerves has its characteristic and unique function to perform. The optic nerve carries light and does not perform the function of the auditory and other nerves. The auditory nerve in its turn carries sound only, without performing the functions of any other nerves, and so on. Thus, it is clear that there are 5 sorts of electricity corresponding to the 5 properties of cosmic electricity. So far as magnetic properties are concerned, the grasping power of the human intellect is at present so limited that it would be quite useless to attempt to make the matter understood by the general public. The intellect of man in Treta Yuga will comprehend the attributes of divine magnetism. The next Treta Yuga will start in AD 4099. There are indeed exceptional personages now living who, having overcome the influence of time, can grasp today what ordinary people cannot grasp. But this book is not for those exalted ones who acquire nothing of it. In concluding this introduction, we may observe that the different planets exercising their influence over the various days of the week have lent their names to their respective days. Similarly, the different constellations of stars having influence over various months have lent their names to the Hindu months. Each of the great yuga has much influence over the periods of time covered by it. Hence, in designating the years, it is desirable that such terms should indicate to which yuga they belong. As the yugas are calculated from the position of the unix, the method of numbering the years in reference to their respective yuga is based on a scientific principle. Its use will obviate much inconvenience which has arisen in the past owing to association to the various eras with the persons of eminence rather than with celestial phenomena of the fixed stars. We therefore propose to name and number the year in which this introduction has been written as 194 Dwapar instead of AD 1894 to show the exact time of the yuga now passing. This method of calculation was prevalent in India till the reign of Raja Vikramaditya, when the Samvat era was introduced. As the Yuga method of calculation recommends itself to reason, we follow it and recommend it that it be followed by the public in general. Now, in this 194th year of Dwapar Yuga, the dark age of Kali having long since passed, the world is reaching out for spiritual knowledge, and men require loving help one from the other. The publishing of this book, requested from me by my holy Param Guru Maharaj Babaji, will I be of spiritual service. Swami Sri Yukteswar Giri, Serampur, West Bengal, the 26th Falgun, 194 Dwapar, AD 1894. End of introduction. Diagram. Virgo is the sign opposite Pisces. The autumnal unix is now falling in Virgo. The opposite point, the vernal unix, is pre-force now falling in Pisces. Western metaphysicians who consider the vernal unix to have chief significance therefore say the word is now in the Piscean age. The unisex have a retrograde movement in the constellations. Hence, the unisex leave Pisces Virgo. They will enter Aquarius Leo. According to Swami Sri Yukteswar Ji's theory, the world entered the Pisces Virgo age in AD 499 and will enter the Aquarius Leo age 2000 years later in AD 2499. Publisher's note.